Apple just released the all-new second generation of the HomePod, and this device looks amazing. It's full of new and impressive tech, and it has very promising hardware for amazing home audio and the future of smart homes in general. Let me show you what's different about this new HomePod and how it compares to the 2018 version and the existing HomePod Mini. Firstly, let's take a look at the design. If you look at them side by side, the 2018 version and this new HomePod really don't look that different. They're still made with the same shape and size and are covered with 100% recycled mesh fabric. Now, technically, the new version is a half-pound lighter and 0.2 inches smaller than its previous model. Other than that, really the main difference in design is that the touch panel on the top of the HomePod is now recessed a little further down than it was on the 2018 version. This look matches with what the HomePod Mini currently looks like. Another new touch that came by popular demand is that the power cable is finally removable. I know this seems simple, but on previous models this was not a feature, so it's definitely a step up in my opinion. Lastly, for design, let's talk about color. The new HomePod only comes in two colors, which is white or midnight. The midnight color is very similar to Apple's existing color, space gray. So keep that in mind, because if you're looking for a smart speaker that isn't just white or black, the HomePod Mini does have a lot more options that are very vibrant in color. Now for sound or audio. This is really where Apple seems to have put most of their focus on the second generation of the HomePod. As they put it in their own description, the HomePod is a powerhouse of a speaker. Most of the audio functionality of the HomePod really remains the same as its predecessor. It still has the same beam-forming speakers, which, if you don't know, basically just means that they're speakers that can push audio into certain directions in the room instead of just emanating all around. These speakers are what allows Apple and the HomePod to achieve spatial audio. Basically, it uses its built-in microphones, it listens to sounds as they bounce around the specific room that you put it in, and then automatically adjusts and tunes itself to get you the best audio experience for that specific room. It sends the primary vocals of your song right to the middle of your room, and then the background music or backup band is reflected off of the walls. This makes for a much more immersive audio experience where you feel like you're being completely surrounded by the sound instead of just hearing it come directly from the speaker in one direction. HomePod 2 does also still support stereo pairing, so if you're fortunate enough to afford two of these units, you can put them in the same room, have them automatically paired together, and what you'll get is a much more surround sound-like experience that's even better than just one HomePod. Alternatively, you can also hook up your HomePod to the Apple TV 4K to use Dolby Atmos, which is really the best audio you can get at home for a home theater-like experience. Unfortunately, the one downside to that stereo pairing is that you cannot pair this new HomePod with a previous generation or with the HomePod Mini. It can only pair with its own kind. And the same goes for HomePod Minis and for the 2018 ones. So if you have an existing HomePod that you've been using since 2018, or if you have one of the newer HomePod Minis, unfortunately you cannot do the stereo pairing with this new full-sized HomePod. But again, overall, everything that I just mentioned were already features of the HomePod back in 2018. What's new or different this time around is that Apple now uses their S7 chip to do all of the computing and real-time audio tuning. That means that this new HomePod is going to be much more advanced, quick, and accurate than the previous one was. Apple actually specifically states that it's going to be doing better at preserving the dynamic range and maximizing the acoustic performance on all of your audio. Believe it or not, those audio improvements are also going to be accomplished with a reduction in the amount of speakers that the unit actually has, going down from 7 in the 2018 version to 5 this time around. And the number of microphones that it has been reduced too, down from 6 to 4. The fact that Apple's new silicon with the S7 and all of the engineering that was put into this is able to achieve better audio with less speakers and microphones is very impressive. Now for the smart home updates. The main upgrade on this new HomePod 2 is that it has Matter compatibility, which, if you don't know, is a very highly anticipated and upcoming smart home standard or language that all of the 4 major companies have already committed to supporting. Basically, what Matter aims to achieve is for all smart home devices to work together, regardless of what brand they are and whether or not you have an internet connection. Now, there's a lot more of it to go into, but stay on the lookout on my channel for an upcoming video explaining Matter if you'd be interested. But really, what I'm trying to say is the fact that it has Matter compatibility is a very good plus for future-proofing your smart home. Outside of that, the HomePod 2 has also been upgraded to match the hardware of the HomePod Mini, including Thread support, a U1 chip, and smart sensors for temperature and humidity. That U1 chip that I mentioned is the same chip that's used in Apple's AirTags for precise location tracking, and it's been incorporated into this new HomePod to get you more precise music handoff when you're switching from your iPhone to your HomePod and listening to music. And obviously, humidity and temperature sensors are going to be useful in any smart home, so that's a plus. Really, all of these updates that were made to the HomePod bring it much more up to par with hardware that's already been included with Amazon Echoes or Google Home devices for a while now. Lastly, price. The second generation of the HomePod is actually being sold for the same price as the first one was almost 4 years ago, $299. Now, there are a lot of other smart home assistants or smart speakers on the market that are obviously a lot more affordable than that, but it is nice to see that Apple at least hasn't increased the price from what it was previously. And obviously, when it comes to tech devices, a general rule of thumb is you get what you pay for. So even if you aren't the biggest fan of Apple in general, there's really no denying that the audio experience you get from a second generation HomePod isn't going to be nearly the same as the audio you'd get from a cheaper Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Plus, if you get a new HomePod right now, they're actually giving you 6 months of Apple Music, which is $60 worth of a premium music service, so that's a good savings too. So to recap it very simply, there hasn't been much change in the design and the hardware on the new HomePod, but the things that have changed are going to be making very big differences in improving the audio experience that you get from your HomePod. The HomePod Mini is a great device, but it's not going to match anywhere near the audio you get from the previous one. And you're going to be able to future-proof your smart home with the second generation HomePod due to the inclusion of Matter. And I'm very curious, what are your thoughts on this new HomePod? Do you have any intentions of getting one? To be honest, back in 2018 when the original one came out, I really wanted one, but I couldn't afford it. And this time around, I'd love to have one, but I'm not sure if I can swallow that $299 price tag. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy this one too. And make sure you subscribe for more Apple and smart home tech reviews in the future.